All right, let's go ahead and finish up the last two sections of this chapter. And then your assignment today is going to be to finish the chapter, or to do the chapter review. Tomorrow you won't have a video, but you will have your test. So I want to make sure that you study for your test tonight too. But let's go ahead and finish. So let's look in your book on page 131, your reader book. We're going to learn about two very important men to American history. If you are a Christian especially. All right, so let's look at the top of page 131. Now remember how there was A.C. Dixon was a famous preacher that preached in a church in New York City, and he was given some warning about these new things, these new fangled ideas, these places, these parks and things, all this stuff that's going on. He was given some warning. Well, let's read about a couple of other men that did the same. So remember, you have to read along with me. This is falsehood and faith. During the Gilded Age, true faith in God and His Word was often mocked or questioned. Charles Darwin's teachings about evolution had been widely accepted. Some people who called themselves Christians no longer believed key Bible truths. They thought the Bible was not God's Word. They doubted whether Jesus was the Son of God. They didn't believe that a loving God would send anyone to hell. Lots of people think that today, don't they? But we know that God doesn't send anybody to hell. We send our own selves that way. Let's read about a man named Dwight L. Moody. D.L. Moody came to Boston at the age of 17 to work in his uncle's shoe store. He began going to the church that his uncle attended, and one day Moody's Sunday school teacher visited him at the shoe store. He spoke with Moody about Christ. Moody became a Christian that day. Turn the page over. Look at the top of page 132. Look at that picture. That's a revival. This is just a painting of a revival in New York on October 24th, 1875. Look at those people. Do you know what a revival is? I bet you know what a revival is. Let's read on. Moody moved to Chicago to work in another shoe store. He began to help with a Sunday school. Soon he started a Sunday school of his own. He decided that God wanted him to do this kind of work full time. Moody left the shoe business. He worked for several years as a missionary in the city of Chicago. Then he began traveling and holding special meetings in other cities. He had made friends in England during a trip there for his wife's health. They invited him to come and preach in the city of London. Moody used some methods from the business world to get the word out about his meetings. He put up signs and he placed ads in newspapers. He believed he should use the press as a tool for spreading the truth. To many Christians, this was a new idea. The people's response to Moody's preaching was much like the Great Awakening in the 1700s. Large crowds came to his meetings. God used him to win thousands of people to Christ during the Gilded Age. Now go back one page, back to 131. Here's a picture of another man. His name is Ira Sankey. Okay, he was a singer. He composed lots of gospel songs in the late 1800s in the United States and in Great Britain. He traveled with D.L. Moody in the 1870s. His singing played an important part in Moody's meetings. He led music before the preaching, and he helped prepare people to hear God's word. He got their hearts. He helped prepare their hearts to hear the message. During his life, Sankey wrote music for more than 1,000 gospel songs. His most famous song was the 90 and 9. The song uses Jesus' parable of the lost sheep to tell how he rescues people that are lost in their sins. I kind of have an image right here on the screen kind of going over that. And I'm also going to have a link when you're finished. I want you to watch this. It's a video of that song, of that hymn. And I'd like for you to, you don't have to necessarily watch it, but I'd like for you to listen to it. It's really neat. Look at page 133. This is the end of a century. The 1800s had come to an end. America had more people, more opportunities, and more wealth than ever before. But America also had many problems. Some of its people lived in slums. Many children worked instead of going to school. Some people trusted in science to solve life's problems. Some looked for happiness and entertainment and in things that money could buy. Many rejected the Christian faith that their parents had taught them. The Gilded Age had been filled with glitter, but not all of that glitter was gold. That's very true. All right, let's look at one of our work text pages. You notice we skipped page 55 in our work text, and you can do that if you want to. But it was a family history activity. I didn't want to give you an activity now to do. I didn't want to assign it, but you can do it if you want to. It's finding someone in your family that's an older person, an elderly person, and just interviewing them and asking them these questions. If you decide to do it, and that can just be on your own. You do not have to turn in anything to me. Always write down, if you ever do that, write down the date and who it was. I really wish that I would have done that with my grandparents when they were still alive. One of my grandpas was a retired Dallas police officer, and he was on duty the night that President Kennedy was shot and killed in 1963. But I never did write anything down. Okay, let's look at work text page 56 right quick. Now, we're just going to go over this page right quick about and really, you don't even have to write anything on this page. We're just going to kind of review the lesson that we just talked about D.L. Moody and Ira Sankey. Now, it's an M for Moody. It's an S for Sankey. You just have to say it. And say it before I do to see if you remember, okay? Number 1, worked in his uncle's shoe store in Boston. M. Number 2, was a singer and composer. S. Number 3, became a Christian when his Sunday school teacher spoke with him about Christ. M. Started a Sunday school. M. Wrote over 1,000 gospel songs. S. Was invited to preach in London. M. Used business methods to get the word out about his meetings. M. Wrote music for the 90 and 9. S. Helped prepare people to hear God's word. S. And received a response to his preaching, much like the Great Awakening in the 1700s. M. I bet you got all those right. Now, explain the falsehood. Basically, that's another word for lie. So explain the lie concerning faith that developed during the Gilded Age. Well, the falsehood or the lie was several things. Many things were taking the place of God's word. You don't have to write any of this down. I just want you to understand this. During the Gilded Age, people started to have more time, free time, so they started to do other things. Well, these other things began to take the place of going to church, reading their scriptures together. Remember how we talked about this was way back in the evening times, families, they didn't have radios or TVs or video games or phones. They would get together and they would read the scriptures. Well, now that there was so much free time and people had more money, they were doing other things. And so idolatry was coming in. Charles Darwin's ideas on evolution, that you came from a monkey, yeah, those types of things, those types of lies started coming in. The other lie was, oh, God is a loving God and he would never send anybody to hell. And that's a lie. That is a lie from the devil. So those types of lies began to come in and people started to be like they are today, unfortunately. Okay, so your assignment, and I'm not going to do it with you, is to do your chapter review. It is pages 57 and 58. Use your book, and then, of course, I'm going to grade the chapter review. And then tomorrow, like I said, you're going to have your test. So make sure you study that chapter review really, really well, okay? And make sure you know all the things that's on there, all right? Okay, if you need any help, let me know. And that'll be all for today.